Actually, if I do the kaleidoscope right now on this program, you'll see what happens. See, in the beginning, there's only a few blocks, and then it expands into more. So what you actually experience is this mirrored effect where as you're starting to pull out, all of a sudden reality starts to compress. And when everything was dark, I could still hear the music. And in fact, the only thing that was keeping me tethered to reality was the beat of the bass of the song going boom, boom, boom. Emperor Palpatine coming to you live from the Death Star with another fascinating tale into the adventures of consciousness. Guys, for today's story, what we're going to do is dive into the depths of the unknown. We're going to traverse waters that I have never personally covered before that are not only going to ruffle some feathers, because people are going to get, all like, oh my God, how could you do such a dangerous mix? But it's not even that. What it's going to do is it's going to make people question the nature of reality, which is kind of the principal factor of me wanting to make this channel, aside from, destigmatizing drugs. Let's null all of that for a minute, and let's dive into the other aspect, the other side of the coin of this channel, which is exploring the unknown. So, I will be your host today as we jump into this puddle that may look shallow at first, but quickly becomes infinitely immersive, and we drown within it of, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
According to YouTube guidelines shown here, videos which intend to educate are documentary by nature and do not glorify the use of drugs, though abide by the community safety guidelines and are eligible for monetization. The following video does not glorify the use of drugs, instead attempts to be non-biased while delivering vital life-saving information disguised as entertainment.
Now for this story, I want to preface it by saying I do not personally recommend that anybody watching follows in my footsteps. This, as with all of my stories, is a story from the past when I was a much more reckless person. As you guys know, I've currently reformed myself. We're at 30 days clean from kratom and clean from, all those other drugs, and I'm presently making amends with my family, just for anyone who's interested. In case you can't tell, I'm not in an Airbnb at the moment. I'm actually filming in my regular studio environment. Maybe things are improving, maybe they're not. I don't know. I'm doing my very, very best here. If you guys think that I'm choosing the channel over my family, well, I'm not. My family is my number one priority, and as you guys have mentioned, I don't have to take drugs on camera. So this experience took place while I was on 2 tabs of some very pure LSD-25 lysergic acid diethylamide, and I had also, during the peak of the experience, mixed it with nitrous oxide, also known as laughing gas, N₂O. This stuff is a legal component to whipped cream. It also actually helps speed your car up. It's amazing that it can do something similar to your brain. Nitrous boost your brain into turbo drive, and in fact, it has divulged to me some fascinating new concepts of our perception of the moment and how we experience time in the present. In other words, it has frozen time, which we're going to get into in a minute. So without going too much into the backstory of this experience, I was with a friend. I don't know, maybe elevation has something to do with this. We were in an apartment, maybe because we were closer to God. I'm just joking. I'm not really religious. But, I'm just trying to factor in all of the variables here because it was absolutely astonishing. And we were on 2 tabs of LSD. What initially was a terrorizing experience that made me question my own sanity, upon reeling back and applying a calm, more reserved outlook on the potential of what was going on, I was able to extrapolate brand new data from it and actually change the nature of the experience from that which was terrifying into that which was not only incredible, but mind expanding. So I believe this is a fantastic opportunity to show you guys a picture of how you and your reaction to your external stimuli entirely dictates not only how you feel about a situation, but when it comes to psychedelic exploration, the actual visual labyrinth that it's going to engulf you in can be dramatically altered just based off your perception of what's going on and how your emotional response to it behaves. Because as you guys know, when you're in the psychedelic headspace, parts of the brain that don't normally communicate with each other are in full-fledged talk mode. The visual cortex is talking with everything. I mean, this is what we can see so far. And it turns into this experience where you actually can have synesthesia, where you're seeing sounds and you're tasting colors, and the brain gets really jumbled and mixed up. It's almost like your consciousness expands to allow in information that is normally cut off to you. So it almost feels like a returning back to, in a way, a baseline experience. And people sometimes compare this to the experience that a baby has before their sense of identity is fully formed, because psychedelics can put you in this very ego-dissolved state where you don't sometimes even remember a language or your name. We associate this with people identifying with their memories, and psychedelics can have a dramatic impact on your ability to recall thoughts and experiences, to the point where if there's no recollection of, who you've been in the past, then who the fuck are you? Which brings the question forth of, well, you're just a conscious agent entertaining physical reality. in the moment, at the end of the day, if it wasn't for your past ideas and your learned notions of what anything is, you would be a blank slate, just like a child. And these psychedelics can put you back into that fertile ground where you're just ripe for new experiences, because they allow you to, entertain reality in ways that you're not normally capable of doing, unless, of course, you're someone who is very, very well trained in the art of meditation. But we're not going to jump that far off topic. Let's get that ADHD brain in check today and dive back into the topic at hand. So before we get into more of this story, let's talk about this video's sponsor. This video has been graciously sponsored by Surfshark. Hats off to them. They have sponsored so much of my content. What they are is a VPN provider, which allows you to stay anonymous on the internet. Everybody knows that your internet provider can actually see everything you're doing. So if you're looking at some of this taboo content, you can kind of turn on a VPN, change your location, and all of a sudden your internet provider is blinded. They got the blinders on to what you're doing. And if you sign up to Surfshark, you're going to get 83% off, which unlocks the absolute best price for VPN on the market. And you're also going to get an extra 3 months. All you got to do to get that amazing bonus feature is use the code PSYCHED. The more of you guys that sign up for Surfshark, the more likely they are to sponsor future videos, meaning the more of these crazy stories I can share with you guys and the more minds we can expand and open. And another added benefit that I always talk about of using a VPN is if you're using Disney Plus in the States, you can turn that on and you actually get all new shows. It unlocks Star Entertainment. I use VPN just for that because it lets me, watch more shit. Everyone sign up for Surfshark, follow the link below, and let's get back on with this story. The first time I did it, and I was on the acid, and it wasn't a very intense trip by any means, but, I did the balloon, the nitrous, and I immediately felt, to explain the visual experience, I visually saw my entity start to stretch out right in front of me, like silly putty, like someone had pulled me, but they were pulling and spinning. It was a spiral motion. Now, this is very interesting. So this is the first time, when I got scared. Let's start at the beginning. So the first time I did the balloon, consciousness pulls out, and it was very intimidating and frightening because I didn't know what was going on. It felt like, death in a sense, because my sense of self, in terms of ability to perceive my visual surroundings, was stripped from me. My thoughts felt like they just immediately were turned into a blank page. There was just nothing, almost calming in a sense, but it left room for panic because I had no memories. I was in this very abysmal state, like I was in the abyss. The fascinating thing was all of my senses were stripped from me, except for my ability to perceive sound. So part of my consciousness was still intact, for parts of this experience because we had music playing, and when everything was dark, not perceiving light, everything's dark, I could still hear the music. And in fact, the only thing that was keeping me tethered to reality was the beat of the bass of the song going boom, boom, boom. And I could hear it, distinctly. And I could also, hear the other melodies, the way they were interplaying and tingling my synapses in new ways. But anyway, I could hear, and that got my thoughts turning. I could hear the eye start to, stretch back into play. And it's like, oh, if I can still hear, then I guess I'm still here. If I could hear and then I'm here, it makes sense, right? It was shortly after that I was able to calm myself down, and I felt myself slowly come back. But this way that you emerge back into the physical space is not like just opening your eyes. The way that the nitrous pulls you out, and when your brain is so altered in a very different conscious state from the acid, you perceive coming back in a brand new way, and slowly your senses return, but in a very kaleidoscopic way, which at first was overwhelming and I didn't understand, and it felt like I was actually merged with my environment. Initially, I was brought back to just seeing a sliver of reality, which was stretched and spun. And then, like a very true kaleidoscope, slowly more pieces would fill in to the point where it was kind of like reality was actually just turned into very basic geometric shapes. Like say I was staring at the fireplace, it's a square fireplace, and then it would slowly come into play and it would be like a diamond, and I would be like, what? That's not supposed to be a diamond. And then one more piece of the puzzle would come in, and then I would see the actual full fireplace. Like it was actually filling in this kaleidoscope puzzle one chunk at a time. And it was absolutely astonishing, but I had no idea what I was looking at. And at the same time, my physical being was stretched, elongated. Like as soon as I got a perception, like the ability to perceive light again, it actually looked like everything was pulled way out, spiraling into a torus, circulating myself, and my friend had, they had their own torus circulating them, which I was blown back by. And as I would come back more and the pieces of the kaleidoscope filled back in, I would also start to like form back into a normal, my perception of time and space also came back. It was insane, just how stretched out things were. It literally just looks like your arms, stretched out, and it just goes for like miles. It felt like this. Like I would come back and it was kind of like as it would as reality would kind of like squeeze back into itself so you could perceive things normally again. So the first time this happened, I was blown away. I was like, what the f just happened? That was insane, terrifying, and it almost felt like I was frozen in time, because during that experience where everything was black and I could only hear the music, that was in the past. If you've seen my trip with Quentin, what I interpreted as an infinite loop, because you are actually experiencing the moment for all of its untold glory. All of this stuff that mystics talk about is living in the moment. Well, this experience puts you right there. There's nothing but the moment. And when you're in that space, it feels like an infinite expansion of conscious awareness that has no bounds. And the way that time is perceived in this boundless state is infinite. And there's no better way that I can describe that right now besides the moment. It feels like an eternity. And until you've experienced something like that, no words are going to really hold any conversion of thought into meaning. There's no way to perceive this until you've been there. I wish I could describe it better, but imagine feeling like the moment that you're in right now will never end. Of course it does end, which is like, but that's, kind of a paradoxical contradiction to what you're saying, because if it was infinite, then it wouldn't end. But it's your perception of the moment. And I gotta say, off track for a minute, if this is what mystics experience when they get into these, like, when they really get good at meditation, people are very aware of this reality and their impact on it. Like I've been reading Inner Engineering by Sadhguru. These people even experience like a glimpse of this in everyday life. It's no wonder they're so goddamn joyful. The experience that we're all joint right now having is, there's no words. It is. It's when you experience it in this way, it gives you a new appreciation for life and yourself, and just you become fascinated with the way that your brain is able to interpret this experience is incredible. And it allows you to see the beauty in the small things, without jumping too much into all that mystical bullshit. Let's just get back to the story. So it's terrifying, but I've been much more confident lately. A lot of you guys have been following what's going on in my life. Yes, this experience happened when I was in my addiction state. This was when I was full blown into it, but it was like I was already starting to get more grounded and in control of myself. Like it wasn't like I could just easily, quit all these drugs and feel like I'm doing so good right now. Like there was a build up to being able to do that. So this was when I was building up my strength and confidence to finally say, this is enough and get clean. So it was during that build up. So I was feeling my strength. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to entertain this experience again. Let's try to induce it in the exact same way again with the same song playing. Only this time, instead of falling into fear, I'm going to feel reassured that the music will keep me here. I'm going to reassure myself that what I'm doing is safe. It's not physically dangerous. There's someone here watching me. I mean, if they got to perform CPR, then at least they're here, right? So I went back into it feeling very safe and grounded and almost in control, that I knew nothing bad could happen. And then this time I thought, instead of reacting in like a, like oh my God, like a paranoid, terrified way, let's try to instead just breathe through it and suspend my initial emotional response and just see what happens. So I did it again. Something similar happened. I felt myself get pulled out. I was very confused visually at first, like what was happening. It was overwhelming. So I did it again and again and again and again and again. And it wasn't until maybe the 10th time that I was finally able to breathe and actually observe the experience without the fear response, which allowed me to see it in its entirety. And first of all, let's talk about what I visually witnessed. So I've already touched on this, but let's go back into it. So the first thing I noticed is as I'm breathing in the balloon and I'm looking up, all of a sudden I start seeing my head stretch out. A torus is like this, I think it's undulating is the word, where it starts in your body and it's just like coming up and around you. And I could see myself stretching up. And as the nitrous is taking more and more effect, the stretching undulation is just growing. And then spiral. So people talk about the visuals. The nitrous visuals looks like a bunch of spirals. I actually got to see the fabric of those spirals. It's actually your reality. When you're watching them start to spiral in slow motion, you're watching yourself stretch out and then start to spin. So before you start spinning, the first stage is this growing. At first, it looks like you're seeing out of both your eyes, but soon it almost looks like the kaleidoscope starts to spin shut. If you've ever shut a kaleidoscope, you'll notice that there's, actually, if I do the kaleidoscope right now on this program, you'll see what happens. See, in the beginning, there's only a few blocks, and then it expands into more. So what you actually experience is this mirrored effect where as you're starting to pull out, all of a sudden reality starts to compress in a way. But what it feels like when you're sitting down is it was always to my right. Everything starts to go, clockwise. Everything starts to spin around clockwise. And then when you're coming back, you come back in a counterclockwise motion. It was very interesting. So I'm watching the thing stretch out, and then it starts to, and then as soon as it starts to spin, it's very hard to keep track visually of what's going on, because one of the first things to shut down is your visual abilities to perceive light. So from there, you go into this space where for a moment you stop existing as far as your notion of what you is, as far as you tether memories, thoughts, and feelings to a sense of identity. That goes right out the window. And when that goes out the window, like I said, you are just in infinite space, interpreting things in a brand new way that is very challenging to bring back into the conscious mind. It's almost like, this drug actually will make you go unconscious. So it's like when you're in the LSD space, what it does is it lets you interpret that unconsciousness in a different way. So were you to do it sober, what you would just notice is you would actually black out. If you do enough nitrous, you black out. But when you black out in this expanded, this new way of interpreting consciousness state brought on by the LSD, you don't just black out. It's more so like you get a new view of being in that in-between between being awake and gone. And it's in that in-between where you experience the moment as infinity. So you get stuck in this infinite moment, which what it actually feels like can be, if you attach fear to it, it turns into this infinite loop where whatever your last thought was just keeps going around and around and around. And it actually feels circular, where it's like the last thought just keeps happening and happening, and you feel like you're stuck in that loop or that thought forever and you can't get out. So that's if you attach a fear response. But if you let go of the fear, again, your emotional response to this experience dictates the actual content of what you're going to feel and see and have. And so when you release that fear response and you actually just feel what's happening, it is this ever-expanding moment of serenity. And you can just surrender to it and feel grateful to know who you really are behind the mask. It opens up a window into what the true levels of conscious experience are before the ego is applied, and before we apply our limitations and our thoughts, our opinions, our beliefs that narrow our perception. When all of those things are stripped, you are just in this infinite, ever-expanding, blissful moment. And then you come back from that. And so as you're coming back from that and your memories start to come back and you start to spiral back and the kaleidoscope starts opening up, that's when you're then given the next opportunity to attach an emotional response to what just happened. And if you attach this calming awe, like, wow, that was incredible, you're then more, I think, privileged to retaining some of the informational data that you have accrued during that state, versus when you attach fear to it, you can kind of, at least for me personally, go into this like fight or flight response where I just kind of want to forget how terrifying that was, and you start to black it out, or you start to apply your notions of what is possible and what isn't possible to it, and you're like, oh, it's just a trip, and you can actually enter some very paranoid, like, this experience can induce extreme psychosis, because when you're in that loop, it feels as real, and you feel like whatever you experience in that time frame, there was no like asleep and awake. Like, it's just this never-ending cycle, and it can make you feel like you're absolutely batshit fucking crazy. If you've ever been in a loop, just for lack of a better term, that's what it feels like. But when you don't attach that fear to it, it allows you to actually see it for what it is. And what I believe is happening is it is putting you into direct contact with the infinite moment. People talk about living in the present. it's hilarious saying that an experience, a drug experience that people say takes you out of reality, that people use as an escape from reality, can actually put you in touch with the true foundations of what reality is actually expanding out of. There's so many paradoxical concepts, and then there's so many ways to interpret the psychedelic experience that there's no one size fits all. For what some people is an escape, for what others is facing the actual truths of our existence. So that's why these compounds are eternally fascinating. But anyway, that's what's happening. And when it happens, it feels like time itself is frozen. Like imagine like a visual of like you're watching like a fly and its wings are all of a sudden everything's frozen. You like, you know, it feels like you could walk around and see the moment forever. And when you're in this frozen state, what can also happen is sometimes your consciousness gets lost. Like I found myself being the cell phone. One of the experiences, I visually looked at the phone and I felt like I was inside the phone as much as I could be inside anything. It was really, really. I wish the kids would stop making that noise upstairs. I think that noise is a sign that I need to wrap this video up. Now, before we do wrap this up, I gotta point out that we have the onesies. These mega soft, what I call trip suits, are still available. We actually had 1,000 made, and so many of these have sold. We're down to like 200 and something left. Limited edition, made by machine elves in DMT land. Tag there. Whoa. They are so soft. Oh my goodness. If you guys have had the blankets, what we actually did was we took the softness of the trip blanket and we multiplied it to make the trip suit. Suit is softer. So what we wanted to do is basically make a wearable trip blanket, which we call the trip suit. Why am I not wearing this right now? This thing is so freaking cozy. And yeah, we don't have many left. So if you want to pick up the trip suit, head on over to psychsubstance.shop. By the time this video has been out for a few days, we will probably be completely sold out. And let me know if you guys want them in different colors. Like if you want us to make some in the pink and black style. Because right now we only did white. Maybe the next one can be this. And then we'll probably do one that's like all filled with blotter art. Our whole theme is selling things that people can comfortably explore consciousness in. Let's throw this on. All right, guys, I'm here. I'm ready for my trip. Hey guys, I got my trip suit on. Are you ready to go have some adventures? You can be a complete dork like me by buying one of these. Yeah, I mean, if they sell out, maybe we'll throw up a pre-order. I haven't decided yet for this or the black one. And yeah, again, hats off to Surfshark. Thank you for sponsoring my videos. If you enjoyed this video, as you guys all know, smash that like button, leave a comment below, and I would like to again just verify that I'm doing good. 30 days off Kratom at this point, also off all those other things. Have absolutely no intention of turning back. I'm feeling like my old creative self is returning, as hopefully you guys can see by the goofy and, you know, the more explorative nature of this video. Anyway, leave a comment below. Let me know what you'd like to see next. Let me know if you enjoyed this one, and let me know what you think of these suits. And yeah, head on over to Psych Substance Reddit, which is just r/PsychSubstance. And if you have one of these suits, I would appreciate some reviews. Someone already left an awesome review on it. Express how insanely soft these are. Anyway, till next time, take care, guys, and I will see you all in the next video.